Polish opposition leader Donald Tusk is declaring the beginning of a new era after three opposition parties appeared to have won enough votes in Sunday's election to oust the governing party. Joining me now to discuss this further and why it affects us at home is Polish political reporter Bartosz Wieliński. Good morning, Bartosz. Tell us,
Good morning.
is this expected? Because from our side of the water, as it were, we're rather surprised by this. We thought Poland was doing well under its current regime, and yet, no, the people of Poland have rejected it. What's going on?
Well, Polish government, incumbent government that lost the election they were masters at propaganda. They're master of, telling people the situation is far better than it really was. And the point is, my countrymen, I believe, they had enough of, lies, propaganda, hatred in politics, misuse of state resources, corruption, and, the cheap and ineffective populism. Despite that, what was being said by the prime minister, but all the captured media, the Polish state wasn't working well. There were problems with incompetence, with no effectivity, many areas. That just, for instance, just before the elections, many petrol stations run by a state oil company went dry. You couldn't buy a fuel. Just imagine a country of fifth economic European Union with no fuel in petrol stations. Polish people were extremely mobilized. We got a turnout of almost 75%. It never happened before since 1989. It's something really astonishing that so many people decided to take part in the vote, and the turnout was especially high among the youngest voters. And the youngest voters probably gave the victory to the opposition and to Donald Tusk. They paved the way for Donald Tusk for this spectacular victory. Frankly speaking, I was believing that could happen, but I'm also surprised. And if you have told me, 4 months ago that would be the outcome of the elections, I would say that this is not very, probable. Polls are surprising. And as a surprise, and the government is also surprised. They simply can't believe they had everything. They have captured the media. The public television in Poland works like a Russian state television. They have, national economy turned into a party, supporting machine. The entire state economy was supporting the ruling party, and they have lost it. Pumped billions of zlotys into the electoral campaign.
Can I get a question in? Here, those of us in Britain and around Europe who don't particularly like the EU, we always look to Poland. We were hoping you might be the first to leave. But obviously that dream has now drowned. That's not going to happen. And in fact, you've got that ardent EU fanatic Donald Tusk in charge now. Does this now mean that Poland will become like France and Germany, the very epitome of EU philosophy? You're going to be very European, looking to Brussels to rule you rather than rule yourselves.
Yeah, actually, there's a choice when you are Polish. There's a choice. If you want to be if you want to be a member of the community, from Brussels community, or being ruled by Russia. If you're unable to Russia, you have a very important choice.
You could always rule yourself.
No, you can't rule yourself. No country can be ruled yourself.
What do you mean you can't rule yourself? It's not a bad idea.
No. Well, actually, each country of European Union is ruled by yourself. There's a community of sovereign country, and Donald Tusk is not a fanatic. I've had worse, supporters, more engaged supporters of European Union. He's clearly a thinking person who knows where are the limits of European integration, and he knows perfectly clear that there are some issues that, must remain within the single sovereignty of member countries. So he is not a federalist. He's not a utopian European politician. And that government that we had would get us out of the EU and put Poland into some kind of gray zone between West and Russia. Just look at Hungary, what's happening in Hungary. They're governing on the south. The politicians are on the Russian or Chinese payroll. I didn't want to have such a situation in Poland, that our politicians would be working for China or for Russia, and our intelligence would be, and secret services would be penetrated by Russian
So the
and
Polish
Chinese
people
spies.
have decided they prefer Brussels to Moscow, basically.
Yes. We prefer Brussels than Moscow, and we believe that there is no such thing like a Brussels occupation or being, subjugated to Brussels. In European Union, we are free, we are independent, we are sovereign. We'll be growing, and we'll be happy. And it's the best choice.
Bartosz, the current regime, for all its failures that you've outlined, has been pretty successful in terms of the migrant crisis. You're not getting too many migrants coming in. Well, when Donald Tusk gets in, you'll have millions of them coming over the border.
No, that's not true. They were not successful because they were just accepting, extreme high corruption with the visas distribution among people living in Asia and Europe. Poland accepted, hundreds of thousands of workers from Southeast Asia, from Central Asia, from Africa, and we believe that many of those people just paid bribes to some middlemen to arrange that. So if you look at the numbers, how many people got Polish visa and left Poland after arriving here, you could tell that Poland even increased the illegal immigration to Europe, because those people were supposed to stay in Poland, not to go to Germany and to Sweden. So they were totally ineffective in their practical approach towards reducing the immigration. Hundreds of thousands of people arrived to Poland, and many of them left Poland to go somewhere else where the living conditions are better than here.
Okay.
So that's it.
Fair enough, fair enough, Bartosz. Listen, very good to talk to you. Thank you so much for your time. That's Bartosz Wieliński, Polish political reporter and fanatical Donald Tusk fan.
Sounds like
clearly. I mean, that was a party political broadcast. I'm not buying all of this. No. I mean, it's a surprising result, and we're learning, it's not a sort of outright victory for Donald Tusk. No. It's a coalition of opposition parties who've managed to secure a majority. Now, it sounds to me, from what Bartosz was saying, this was a vote against not being able to get petrol at the local gas station, basically, as opposed to a vote against the economy, which was doing quite well. And whatever Bartosz said, they have been successful about stopping migrants coming in. When Tusk gets in, they can forget about that. There'll be millions coming over the border.
Yeah, well, look, I think, Kevin, that politics runs in cycles, and we see it a lot. I mean, 2016, we had Donald Trump, we had Boris Johnson, we had Meloni in Italy, we had the French Marine Le Pen were doing well. And now I think we're at the end of that cycle, and the public are now starting to look at more left-wing, more centre-left politicians to actually take charge of their countries. And we could see that in this country, let's say, in a year or so's time with the Labour Party. So that's what's happening. And I do think that there are global scenarios here, global factors that are in play. Petrol, the not being able to get petrol is obviously one of those big ones.
Not a good look, is it?
It's not a good look. We've got the cost of living crisis in the UK. And a lot of this actually is not in their control, these politicians. It's because of external factors like the war in Ukraine and broader geopolitics. So that's just what happens. But I do think that Bartosz, although he clearly was a Donald Tusk fan, I think he did have a good point. It was that, Poland can decide to either cozy up to the European Union or they can cozy up to Russia. So it's about where they align themselves. And I think, actually, it's not a terrible thing. They've chosen to go down the route of staying, within close to the EU.
It does depress me when you get someone like Bartosz saying, we can't govern ourselves. Well, we either get governed by Moscow or we get governed by Brussels. Why can't countries stand up for themselves? But how do you see this affecting the European project, Britain, the rest of us? I mean, the thing I've been waiting for the, with bated breath is for someone to leave the EU. I do think it's a sclerotic organisation. I do think its days are numbered, or probably, to be fair, its decades are numbered. But I do think it's on the decline. But this is a good day for it, isn't it?
It is, and they've brought in what could have been a sceptical country. It doesn't mean that those other countries don't exist. You've got Hungary, Viktor Orban, who's no fan of the European Union. You've got Italy, ruled by Giorgia Meloni, who also is Eurosceptic. France is not particularly smitten. Some quarters of France not particularly smitten with EU membership. So it isn't on the safest of ground by any stretch. But this is, in this instance, good news for them. Donald Tusk is a former president of the European Council.
How can we forget?
We all remember him. I mean,
on the telly every day,
every day, and we can't.
Kind of famous.
Yeah, he was. I mean, we can't name many. You know, a lot of people can't name many European leaders, but Donald Tusk is familiar to us UK voters because he was prominent in the EU. But that also means that maybe he's seen the EU from within. He's seen areas where it can be improved, reformed, and who knows? If we're looking on the bright side, perhaps it's not a bad thing for him to be in, so he knows where the skeletons are hidden and where he can improve them. But ultimately, in the short term, I think this puts an end to Poland's ambitions, if they did exist, of leaving the European Union. I think you might have to look elsewhere, Kevin, if you're hoping that someone else joins us and leaves the bloc.